just worry about their own business.
Just me. That's how we're gonna survive.
Meet Paul Vitti.
How you doing? Feel great, never felt better.
A mob boss with a problem.
Yeah, I got stress.
Based on everything I say, you had an anxiety attack.
I'm different. A doctor, like a psychiatrist.
Sober?
Listen, mister, you can't come in here. This is a patient's private section.
You know me?
Yes.
No, you don't. You see my picture in the paper?
Yes.
No, you didn't.
He's got problems.
Well, yeah.
You? Not my shrink.
You don't hear the word no very often, do you?
I hear it all the time, and it's more like, no, please, no.
You gotta act so.
Analyze this. In my world, I deal with animals back there.
Want to be a ribeye? Get away from the car. What is my goal here? To make you a happy, well-adjusted gangster?
I'm very angry. I'm trying to get some emotion on that. Get addiction. Find out what this equation is.
You know what I do when I'm angry? I hit a pillow. Oh, yeah. Just hit the pillow. Feel better?
Yeah, I do.
Warner Brothers presents Robert De Niro.
I couldn't do it last night.
Sexually?
No, I mean for the big game against Michigan State. Of course, sexually.
Billy Crystal.
I am here, as is considerably glary. You want a fresh one?
And Lisa Kudrow.
My wedding is ruined because you've got problems.
In the story of a gangster who couldn't kill anymore and the psychiatrist who must cure him.
Get rid of the shrinking. There's too much already.
It's okay. I wasn't really gonna whack it. Oh, all right. Maybe I was gonna whack it. I was real conflicted about it.
Analyze this.
You got a gift. Yes, you do. Oh, yes, you do.
I think the trailer pretty much sums up the premise of this movie overall. Yeah, Robert De Niro as this crisis-stricken mafioso who solicits the assistance of a reluctant psychiatrist played by Billy Crystal. And basically the movie just plays off of both of them and their chemistry together. And it has a script by Harold Ramis and Peter Tolan, who gave us Rescue Me, and also playwright Kenneth Lonergan. And the results kind of speak for themselves. The movie kind of works because of that chemistry these guys have. They have really good chemistry together. The overall movie has a lot of good funny moments to it. And for Harold Ramis and Billy Crystal, coming off a string of not-so-spectacular movies that were not big successes, this was a nice return to them. And this was a big hit when it came out. It actually broke the record for Robert De Niro for his biggest opening weekend of all time, which is saying a lot because, not just for him, but also for Billy Crystal, with City Slickers. City Slickers only made $13 million back in 1991, and I think Ronin, it made kind of around, I can't remember how much it made. Let me see if I can find it here real quick. $16.7 million, and this thing made about $18 million, which doesn't seem like too big of a number, but the legs on this movie kept growing, and the film made actually over $100 million when it was all said and done, which prompted them to make a sequel 3 years later, and it kind of falls into sequel territory where it's just pretty much the same movie all over again. But this film actually does work. You got a good cast overall in here. Robert De Niro and Billy Crystal working off each other, and Lisa Kudrow is very good in the movie too. So is Chas Palminteri. You even see an early glimpse of Asif Manvi from The Daily Show in here. It's a fun movie. It's a very enjoyable film. It has a lot of good comedy to it. There's a lot, and it works mostly because of that chemistry that De Niro and Crystal have, and the direction of Harold Ramis, which I really don't know what went wrong with the sequel that came after this, but other than the fact that it was just the same movie all over again. But this movie works very well on its own. It's a very good film, a very fun, enjoyable film. I definitely recommend checking it out if you haven't seen it. Analyze This, really good film. Check it out. So that's Analyze This. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is Cruel Intentions.
You know, you could be a model. It's too bad you're not sexy.
I can be sexy.
You know what would be super duper sexy? If you lost all the clothes.
Huh?
I'm sick of sleeping with these insipid Manhattan debutantes. Nothing shocks them anymore.
But you can relax. I have a mission for you. What I Plan to Wait by Annette Hargrove.
Paradigm of chastity and virtue.
Introduce her to your world of sex, drugs, and what else do you do? She's young, supple.
She'll be my greatest victory.
You don't stand a chance.
Care to make a wager on that?
If I win, then that hot little car of yours course, mine.
And if I win?
I'll give you something you've been obsessing about ever since our parents got married. Happy hunting, Sebastian.
Ciao. Do you think you could arrange a little get-together? Don't think this isn't going to cost you. Dogs are beautiful.
Bold ego where no man has gone before.
People should experience the act of love until they are in love.
Do you mind if I take my new car for a ride?
I can't win with you.
It's not about winning, Sebastian.
Will you stop?
It's okay with your mom.
She's really getting you, isn't she?
I'm completely infatuated with her. We're destroying an innocent girl. You do realize that?
You're just a toy, Sebastian.
Get it together.
Let me know when you do.
I thought we were just gonna be friends.
Is she for real?
Stop it.
In the game of seduction, there is only one rule.
Why can't we be together?
Because I don't trust myself with you.
Never fall in love.
Are you in? Or are you out? Quite the predicament you're in.
Cruel intentions.
My advice is to sleep with as many people as possible.
So this is basically a modern retelling of the story by Pierre Chodelos de Lacos. I feel like I'm pronouncing that name wrong, but his novel, Dangerous Liaisons, which basically that's what it comes down to. It's basically a modern retelling of Dangerous Liaisons. We have already talked about a version of Dangerous Liaisons from the 1980s with John Malkovich, Michelle Pfeiffer, Glenn Close. And that was a decent film on its own, but this one takes place in New York City, and now it's rich high schoolers because this is the late 1990s, and teens were pretty much ruling the movies and television, and needless to say, one of the biggest teen stars of the time, Sarah Michelle Gellar from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This was her second film as a movie star after Simply Irresistible crashed and burned at the box office. And you have Ryan Felipe, Reese Witherspoon, Selma Blair. This is directed by Roger Kumble, who also wrote the script for this, and it's a very interesting concept. It's a fun idea. I mean, it's basically the same thing as Dangerous Liaisons, except instead of clearly 30 to 40-year-olds playing these roles, you now have 20 to 30-year-olds playing these roles, because that's the appeal of the time period. And they've actually tried to make a sequel TV series off of this movie. That's how big the success of this movie has been, because there's been direct-to-video films. There was actually a prequel series that they were going to do that was eventually scrapped by Fox shortly after this movie came out, but they actually made two direct-to-video sequels for this, and then they made the pilot for NBC, which there was a big thing about Sarah Michelle Gellar coming back, and then she eventually agreed to the deal, but in the end the project never went forward. There's actually a reboot now in the works over on IMDb TV, and it was actually just given a series order too, and there's actually a musical version of this too, so this movie has had its lasting legacy, and it definitely does. I mean, it's not quite to Wild Things levels, but there are certainly some elements in this movie that would make people want to watch this movie. I mean, you want to see Buffy the Vampire Slayer kissing Selma Blair on the lips. I mean, this is the movie to do it with. And Ryan Felipe, Reese Witherspoon, Louise Fletcher, you see Joshua Jackson, then of Dawson's Creek, Sean Patrick Thomas, Eric Mavis, Susie Kurtz, Christine Baranski, Tara Reid. I mean, there's a big cast in this movie, and everybody in here does their job pretty well. It's a straightforward retelling of Dangerous Liaisons. I'm not going to say that this is the better version. I would rather see the original version, the one with the 80s version with Glenn Close, John Malkovich, and Michelle Pfeiffer, but that's just me. But this is the one that's definitely had the longest lasting power, mostly because of the stars they have here. And it was a much bigger success for people like Sarah Michelle Gellar, and it did get people like Ryan Felipe and Reese Witherspoon. It got their names out there, as it did Selma Blair. So the film did accomplish what it was trying to do, get these stars out there, be a success, and it did become a success in the long run. It went on to become a cult classic and spawning all these different things afterwards. So there is an audience for this film. I thought it was just alright for what it was. I prefer the 80s one, the Stephen Frears one better, but that's just me. But this movie's pretty good too. Cruel Intentions, worth a watch. So with that said, on to the last movie we have here, and that is Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels is fresh, fast, and utterly original. A smart comedy that crackles with wit.
Like one of those James Bond films.
A wild, irresistible ride with a cliffhanger ending that will leave you reeling.
No, okay.
Lock, Stock, and Two select cities.
Guy Ritchie's first feature film as a director. He wrote and directed this, and it's also produced by Matthew Vaughn, who of course would have a successful film career of his own right. And a cast that includes Jason Fleming, Dexter Fletcher. Dexter Fletcher, of course, would later go on to become a great director in his own right with Rocket Man. Nick Moran, Stephen McIntosh, Sting, and the feature film debuts of people like Vinnie Jones and Jason Statham. You have a story about a heist involving a self-confident young card shark who loses 500,000 pounds to a powerful crime lord in a rigged game of three-card brag. And to pay off his debts, he and his friends decide to rob a small-time gang who happen to be operating outside the flat next door. And it's a really good movie. It's what you expect from a Guy Ritchie film. And Guy Ritchie makes a lot of decent films. Well, not even decent films, really great films. I mean, he followed this up with Snatch. Kind of hit a snag in the mid-2000s with stuff like Swept Away and Revolver, but then kind of came back with stuff like Rock and Rolla and Sherlock Holmes. And he's kind of been so-so as of recently. Like, sometimes he'll make some really good films. Other times, not so much. It's kind of a mixed bag with him. But most of his stuff, you know exactly what you look for when you look for a Guy Ritchie film. You can see a lot of the stuff that he would use in other films of his. And the people that are involved with this, Matthew Vaughn and Dexter Fletcher, you can see a lot of the inspiration they took from this when they became filmmakers in their own rights. And it makes for an entertaining film. It's a film that's really enjoyable, a lot of fun. The crime element's very good. You get invested in this heist so well. It's a well-made film. It's a really good film. I highly recommend checking it out. Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Dear Rachel, sorry about dissing you. What does he see in her? Like, he should at least be seen as someone cool, treating you like dirt, and trying to steal your boyfriend. No hard feelings, okay? So you want to know how I'm feeling today?
The Rage, Carrie 2, rated R, starts Friday.
Yeah, you know it's bad when they can't even put Carrie 2 as the main title for this. It's got to be the subtitle. And, yeah, this was never meant to be a sequel to the original Carrie. It was originally written as an original film called The Curse. It did not have any connection to the Carrie novel or film whatsoever, but was eventually rewritten into a direct sequel to the 1976 film. And it has the younger half-sister of Carrie White, also suffering from telekinesis, which finds that her best friend's suicide was spurred by a group of popular male classmates who exploit her for sexual gain. You can start to see where the problem with this movie comes into play here. This takes place in the 1990s. How is she the half-sister of Carrie? I mean, this is... Actually, no, that actually makes... This still doesn't make any sense here, because they say she's the half-sister of Carrie White, who in the original film was played by Sissy Spacek, but in this film she's played by Emily Burgle. Actually, no, she's not. This isn't even the same person in that movie. I mean, I'm trying to remember this, because it's been a while since I've seen this film, and, like, this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Like, how is this person related to Carrie in any way, shape, or form? But the first film took place in the 70s. Like, that's one of the major problems with this movie here, and then trying to connect it to the original film. It can't work like that. And, yeah, you could say that Emily Burgle's doing a good job playing Rachel in this, but it's just a Carrie remake for the MTV generation of the late 90s. I mean, there's nothing about this movie that says it's a direct sequel to the original film. Like, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's not based off the Stephen King movie, even though Stephen King wanted his name on this, but then again, Stephen King will put his name on anything except for good films like The Shining, but, yeah, this movie's terrible. This is a terrible, terrible movie. It's nothing but a retread of the original film and basically the same premise to it. And, like, it had kind of a resurgence during the Me Too movement's early days. But at the same time, though, it's just a remake of the original. It's just the original film all over again. It's a remake disguised as a sequel. And basically, we've learned that Carrie worked the first time, and it should never have been attempted to be rebooted ever again, because we had the NBC TV movie that was supposed to launch into a TV series that was terrible too, and then we had the Chloe Moretz remake that happened about 10 years ago, which was, nothing special. But at the same time, though, this film is just... It's a bad movie. It's a bad movie, and you can praise the leading actress all you want to in this. I mean, she's fine in here, but still... You expect so much more for a follow-up to Carrie, and this was not the way to do it. And just basically, with everything they tried to do with the original film, they should have just left it dead. Just leave it after the first movie and be done with it. But nope, can't have that. So we have this movie here, The Rage, Carrie 2. So let's keep going on the train of BS with Chow Yun-fat and Mark Wahlberg in The Corruptor.
The police commission is promising safe streets in Chinatown. Detective Daniel Wallace. Detective Nicholas Chen.
Why does a white call request to Agent Gang? Chance to work with you.
You don't change Chinatown. It changes you.
Two men who can't be bought. Two cops who won't be stopped. Chow Yun-fat, Mark Wahlberg. The Corruptor. Rated R. Coming soon.
So I guess they were trying to do for Chow Yun-fat what they did with Jackie Chan a couple years ago at New Line Cinema. And you basically have the story here about with the aid of a New York City policeman played by Mark Wahlberg, you have a top immigrant cop trying to stop drug traffickers and corruption by immigrant Chinese triads, but things get complicated when the triads try to buy the policeman. And it's hard to believe this is coming from the same director who gave us Glengarry Glen Ross. I mean, what a difference in quality between that movie and this film. But, truth be told, it's probably the best film that came out this weekend, honestly. And even then, it's not really saying a whole lot here. I mean, Chow Yun-fat doing what he does best, works fine in here. Mark Wahlberg playing the typical role you expect from this guy. Is trying to create like a Rush Hour, Lethal Weapon type of vibe here. Except there's no real comedy in this. It's played straight up for action thriller purposes. And it just doesn't have the spark it really needs to get it going like I think they wanted to. I mean, Chow Yun-fat can be a really good actor, but even he can't really save this movie from going over the edge too much there. And like James Foley clearly deserves much better than this. Like, it's hard to believe this is the same guy that gave us Glengarry Glen Ross. And talk about the difference in quality between this and that the Glengarry Glen Ross. But I mean, like I said, still better than anything else that came out this weekend. Case in point, our next film. Baby Geniuses.
We just don't understand them.
He's delusional. Don't have a cow, Basil.
TriStar Pictures presents South, the story of what can happen when babies know too much.
You the one, baby.
Speak too well.
I gotta get a disguise. Smoking.
And get a little too big for their diapers.
I don't know what you're feeding that kid, but we're gonna get some.
Baby Geniuses. Rated PG.
Speaking of great directors who took a major step down from their previous works, would you believe that this is the same guy that gave us films like Black Christmas, Porky's, and A Christmas Story? I wouldn't believe it, but unfortunately this is what happens. You basically have a story that really kind of explains itself. These babies are basically geniuses. They can talk like humans, they can talk like him, and they're also super spies apparently. And this film had the distinction of being the first full-length feature that used CGI for the synthesis of human visual speech. 2D warping techniques were used to digitally animate the mouth shapes of the babies, which were really shot with their mouths closed, which should have been the way to do it. You should have done it like Look Who's Talking, but no. We got to give this the 90s edge because we have this technology that we can use now to make these babies actually move their mouths. And bad move on that part. In fact, everybody in this movie, it's a bad move on their part. Kathleen Turner, bad move. Christopher Lloyd, bad move. Kim Cattrall, bad move. Peter McNichol, really bad move. Ruby Dee, really bad move. What more do I even need to say about this movie? This is a terrible film that somehow made its money back. This thing only cost $12 million, and it was apparently enough of a success that Sony basically made a sequel with Bob Clark again. Again, what a downfall from A Christmas Story almost 20 years prior to this. It's just wow, man. Like, did it really get that bad for you? I don't think I need to say anything more about this one. This is a terrible movie, Baby Geniuses. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next film, The Deep End of the Ocean.
Is this possible?
He came to the door to mow lawns.
After 9 years,
The fingerprints match.
her son is home.
He doesn't know who we are. He doesn't remember us.
But a house isn't a home
I don't see why I have to live here.
unless the people inside
I've been doing fine without you.
I don't think you have been, Vincent.
are a family.
All I want is for us to be happy.
You let me do what I have to do.
Michelle Pfeiffer, The Deep End of the Ocean, rated PG-13.
So yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer and Treat Williams, who are this couple who they get a family's reaction when their youngest son is kidnapped. They find him 9 years later living in the same town where his family had just moved, and the trials and tribulations that follow after this. And I was almost expecting them to go a Lifetime Movie of the Week, because this is literally a TV movie of the week. And the only reason it's on the big screen because A, Michelle Pfeiffer, B, you have Whoopi Goldberg in there too. And C, it was the first novel selected by Oprah Winfrey on her Oprah's Book Club back in 1996 when the book came out. And I guess that was more than enough to make a movie off of this and put it on the big screen. But really, there's nothing about this that's more than enough for the big screen. This feels like a Lifetime movie of the week, a movie that you'd see on the CBS TV movie of the week or something like that. It's just a schmaltzy, gimmicky movie, and everybody in here is really wasted in here. They're not given a whole lot to do. The writing isn't that good. It's a bland story. There's nothing all that spectacular about it. It's a forgettable mess of a film. It's a major misfire. One of Michelle Pfeiffer's two major misfires in 1999. We'll get to the other one a little bit later in the year, but that's the deep end of the ocean. So let's go ahead and get to probably the biggest flop of the entire weekend, which is saying a whole lot, Wing Commander.
Stations, the rocky ships are close.
What is this thing? Earth's last hope is a new generation of warrior.
Lieutenant Christopher Blair.
Todd, Maniac Marshall.
I got two bogeys coming in hot.
Let's do it.
Freddie Prinze Jr., Matthew Lillard. Wing Commander.
Woo! I love this baby!
Rated PG-13. March 12th, only in theaters.
So the premise is that it takes place in the mid-27th century. The Terran Confederation is at war with the Felinoid Kilrathi Empire. After destroying a Terran base, the Kilrathi have seized a NavCom with the hyperspace jump coordinates to Earth. With Terran reinforcements scheduled to arrive 2 hours after the Kilrathi hit Earth, it falls upon the starfighter carrier TCS Tigerclaw to kill the Cathri Busy. And you have Freddie Prinze Jr., Matthew Lillard, Saffron Burrows in here. A decent cast overall, but a film that just has no reason to really exist. Nobody was really asking for this. The games were fun, but this is hardly based off of the games, despite the fact that it has the same the creator directing this, which is probably the first mistake there. You should have gotten a more known director to direct this and actually make something out of it. And it was a massive flop when it came out, not surprisingly. It only brought in $11 million on a budget of $27 million. It had a small budget, and it couldn't even make that back. Couldn't even make half of that back. It's just like this is a film that, and Freddie Prinze Jr. himself has later gone on to say that he can't stand Wing Commander. He can't stand watching it. He read the script and loved it. So did Matthew Lillard. And we both got the parts. We went on location. They said, "Here's the new script," and it turned out to be a piece of crap. Like they pulled the screw job on them. It's just like I can't believe that this is like I couldn't believe when watching this how bad this movie really was. Like I remember seeing the trailers for this all the time on Nickelodeon back in the day, and they really thought they were going to sell this and actually make a hit out of it. And needless to say, that did not work. The movie has since been long forgotten, and for good reason. And Wing Commander itself has pretty much stayed out of obscurity for a long period of time until they put it. The last game came out in 2007, so that should pretty much tell you everything you need to know. I mean, this game did not have any lasting power whatsoever. So yeah, that's Wing Commander for you, the biggest bomb of the entire weekend, and that's saying a whole lot.
Forces of Nature is outrageously funny.
I know you that long, but I think something may be wrong with you.
A fun hit ride. Newsweek calls it unabashedly romantic and fun.
Sorry about that kissing thing. If I'd known you were getting married, I never would have made it open mouth.
I'm getting married tomorrow. I have non-refundable tickets to Hawaii, and I cannot make myself leave this room.
Sandra Bullock, Ben Affleck, Forces of Nature, rated PG-13, now playing everywhere.
So you got Ben Affleck playing this book jacket summary writer who's ready to fly back to Savannah, Georgia to marry his fiancée, played by Maura Tierney. But then the plane crashes at takeoff and Ben is stranded at the airport, but soon meets this free-spirited woman played by Sandra Bullock, who finds a man called Vic, who offers him a ride in his rented car where they'll split the expenses. And among their troubled journey, the forces of nature seem to conspire against Ben as he gets better acquainted with this unpredictable woman. And soon he questions whether or not he should go through with marrying Bridget. It's the same kind of story we've seen done over and over again. In fact, Sandra Bullock has done a number of these type of films in the throughout much of the 90s, and really, it's not really all that good. I mean, this is a film that just moves way too fast. The editing on this, the cinematography on this is just all over the place. And surprisingly, the chemistry between these two really good actors, Ben Affleck and Sandra Bullock, just does not work at all. Like, it just really does not have that ebb and flow that this film really needed. And it just goes for the predictable jokes, the jokes that we've heard time and time again, the jokes that aren't really all that funny, aren't really all that clever, but it's a romantic comedy, so we got to throw them in there. We got to have the third act breakup. We got to have the wire revealed. We got to have the, you know, all the romantic comedy cliches, and it just doesn't work. It's a movie that really, with the talent that they have on here and this director that they have, Brown and Hughes, who would later go on to direct the much better, who directed Harriet the Spy before this. I thought for a second he directed Snow Day, but that is not the case. Actually, it's a she. I'm sorry, I got that confused, but she directed Harriet the Spy, which was okay for what it was, but yeah, you kind of expect her to evolve as a filmmaker after that with her first film and all that, but it's also written by Mark Lawrence, who would have much better success with Sandra Bullock the following year with Miss Congeniality, and went on to become a director in his own right, but this is just not a good film. Lawrence also wrote the Outer Towners remake we talked about a couple weeks ago, which was not that great, but I'll give it this. This is probably a little bit better, but not by that much. I mean, it's a film that you think could have been that easily could have been so much better, but the cinematography is just all over the place. The editing is all over the place. Like, they edited like an action movie at some points. It's just kind of like, really? Like, why do you have to throw this wacky editing in here? It's just all over the place. And like I said, the leads don't have the chemistry that really needed to be here to make this work. I mean, Sandra Bullock and Ben Affleck can have chemistry in movies, and I would have liked to have seen another film with them together, but here, it just doesn't work. It goes through the same cliches we've seen done over and over again. It's boring, it's not funny, it's uninventive, it gets annoying at several points. It's not a good film. It's not a worthy film at all. Avoid it like the plague. That's Forces of Nature. So, on to the next movie, Clint Eastwood in True Crime.
What do you think of Beecham? Well, sometimes I think about the girl who shot dead over $96. Mostly I think about doing my job.
Well, 12 hours from now, convicted killer Frank Beecham will be executed by lethal injection.
Oh, there's yours. All I'm looking for here is the human interest angle, you know, final date, what it's like, right?
Whatever it on it.
Just said everything with Everett is a big investigative witch hunt.
Hey, he was a drunk then, he isn't now. Everett, come here.
I would tell everyone that I believe in Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. I believe I'm going to a better place, better justice there. Is there any more that you want?
Mr. Beecham, frankly, I don't give a rat's ass about Jesus Christ. I don't care about justice in this world or the next. So I'm going to ask you, did you kill that woman or not?
Read the transcripts. A witness saw Beecham with a gun.
I think I will feel a whole lot safer when Frank Beecham's gone.
Is there something here before?
Yes, sir. That's where the potato chips used to be.
How can you assume all of the potato chips? The potato chips? This is a white accountant in Richmond telling me he's just going to walk into a grocery store when he heard the shots.
You're the guy who let that crooksman get the rape mystery loose last year.
How are they going to kill the guy tonight?
Can you come back tomorrow?
After a police investigation, a trial, 6 years of appeals, and you found discrepancies?
Now, come on, there was somebody, wasn't there? Give me something.
Man, what do you want from me? What do you people want from me?
Anybody ever tell you that Beecham volunteered for a lie detector test? And he flunked it big time. So why don't you just go pour yourself a towel and think about that?
I don't know whose head you're trying to save here. Beecham's or your own.
From Academy Award-winning director Clint Eastwood.
From Beecham?
Let me tell you a little. True Crime.
So Clint Eastwood plays this Oakland Tribune journalist with a passion for women and alcohol, and is given the coverage of the upcoming execution of this murderer played by Isaiah Washington. His attractive colleague, played by Mary McCormick, died in a car accident the night before, and his boss, played by Dennis Leary, and husband to Steve's current affair, wants him dead and gone as soon as possible. And when Steve stumbles across the possibility of this guy being innocent on death row, he feels his time has come. Now Steve only has a few hours left to prove the innocence of this guy and to be right with his theory, and he will definitely be history if he's not. And really the biggest fault of this movie, honestly, is that it kind of reminds me of way too much like a more serious, more deep To Kill a Mockingbird, and it just doesn't quite work. This is part of a time when Clint Eastwood made these movies that he was kind of on a low streak at this point. Like, some of his movies that he was putting out as a director were not really turning out to be that great, and this one definitely is not one of his stronger films, and he would kind of follow it up with probably the film that brought him back on track a little bit with Space Cowboys, which is much more mainstream. This one feels like it's trying a little too hard to figure out what kind of an audience it wants to sell to. Does it want to be the type of film that sits around with a limited crowd, or does it want to be a straightforward mainstream film? And the mystery really is not that intriguing. I mean, that trailer alone, you could pretty much tell what's actually going to happen when this is all said and done. I mean, like, there's really no reason to watch this film. And Clint Eastwood has made a lot of better films, and I think a lot of people back then really thought the same thing, because this film was not a big hit whatsoever. It was a big bomb. It was cost $55 million, only bought back in $16 million. So people were rightfully stepping away from this film pretty quickly, and honestly, I can't blame him for that, because the film really was not that good. It was a major disappointment for Clint Eastwood, and like I said, he kind of go back on track a little bit after this next film that comes in 2000 with Space Cowboys, but this was kind of the end of a little bit of a lull for him after with Absolute Power, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, and then True Crime, and he'd come back on track to start the new millennium off. So that's True Crime, and here's another Warner Brothers bomb that came out on the same weekend in 1999, the animated adaptation of The King and I.
In a land far, far away, he was the king, and his word was law.
Someday you too will know everything.
When do I know that I know everything?
When you are king.
She's coming. The king's new school teacher.
Let's show them something truly barbaric. Where is school teacher?
Now, a woman with a mind of her own.
I won't have soldiers at my door.
You will stand here and meet royal children.
Will open his eyes to a changing world.
You've never been outside?
What? Royal children outside Thomas?
Getting to know you, getting to feel free and easy.
Warner Brothers Family Entertainment and Morgan Creek Productions invite you into a mysterious kingdom where a trusted friend plots betrayal.
I will be ruler of Siam. Oh, that scared me.
A servant girl will find her strength.
Who are you?
An object like rug given to king.
A prince will defy his father.
Servant girl and prince forbidden.
And the king will discover the true power of friendship.
You have been great help to me.
I'm speechless.
For once.
Come, discover all the magic. All the music. And all the adventure. Of The King and I.
Etc., etc., etc.
So yeah, what that trailer doesn't also tell you is that it's actually produced by Rankin Bass, the company that gave us Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Frosty the Snowman. In fact, the director of this is Richard Rich, who also gave us The Swan Princess, which was also a Disney knockoff, but at least it was trying compared to this movie. I mean, this is loosely based off of Rodgers and Hammerstein's musical of the same name, and loosely you'll automatically see right away if you watch the film how loosely this thing starts off with. But we'll get to that in just a second. But it portrays a fictional account of English school teacher Anna Linoolens, played by Miranda Richardson here, as an historic encounter with the King of Siam in the royal court. And Martin Vidnovic plays Monkoot, and you also have Ian Richardson, Daryl Hammond, Adam Wiley. The songs in the movie are pretty much taken from the musical, and they said that the writers of this took creative liberties with the history and the source material for the musical in an attempt to make the film palatable to all audiences. And yeah, they did that, and like I said, right from the get-go, the film literally begins with the villain of the film, who is Kralahome, who's actually a friend of the king in the musical, but here they're making the bad guy because hey, Disney had the same thing too, and let's give him a comic sidekick too, played by Daryl Hannah, who's got this really bad Asian voice that he adds on to this role. I mean, that's one of the things that's wrong with it. But his first thing he does when he sees the school teacher is like, I'm going to give her a massive sea serpent and try to kill her, even though I need her to be part of my plan to take over the kingdom. And that is just one of the many problems with this movie that you'll see right away. The scenes in here make no sense. The animation is really, really sloppy. Like, the Swan Princess was at least trying to put together some nice animation and actually have fluid animation at times. But this, you could just tell that this was just a really bad film right from the get-go. It's just kind of like, the jokes aren't funny. Everybody has a sidekick, a comic sidekick in here that they were clearly trying to sell toys off of. I mean, this is a film that was just, it's almost it's not as bad as Quest for Camelot, but it comes pretty damn close to being a straight-up Disney knockoff in the worst possible way. Like, nothing about the story makes any sense. It has no charm to it. The animation is not that great. The music is not that great either. And I honestly can't really delve into this much more in a way that could actually add to something to it. If you want to see a better example of how to look at this movie, go watch the Nostalgia Critic's King and I review, because he did that a whole lot better, covering the history of the story, which has quite an intriguing history with the many different versions they've done of this. But yeah, it was actually one of two films based off of The King and I we got in 1999, the other being Anna and the King with Jodie Foster, and we'll find out later on down the year how that turned out. But this one, not so much. So, on to the last film, and that is Ravenous.
It's the flesh of another. He absorbs the other man's strength. Evil. I just had to try. Power, really not. Hunger. Don't stop. You don't. Tomorrow. Oh, God. You are. Ravenous. Rated R. Tomorrow, only in theaters.
So yeah, I never even heard of this movie before I even did this, but this is a horror western cannibal film starring Guy Pearce, Robert Carlyle, Jeffrey Jones, and David Arquette. And the story is that you have this guy, Captain John Boyd, who receives a promotion after defeating the enemy command in the Battle of the Mexican-American War, but because the general realizes it was an act of cowardice that got him there, he's given a backhanded promotion to Fort Spencer, where he's third in command. The others at the fort are two Indians, George and his sister Martha, who came with the place, Chaplain Toffler, Reich the soldier, Cleves, a drugged-up cook, and Knox, who is frequently drunk, when a Scottish stranger named Colquhoun appears and recovers from frostbite almost instantly after being bathed. He tells the story about a party leader named Ives, who was eating members of the party to survive. As part of their duty, they must go up to the cave where this occurred to see if any of them survived. Only Martha, Knox, and Cleves stay behind, and George warns that since Colquhoun admits eating human flesh, he might be a Wendigo, which is a ravenous, cannibalistic creature, which sounds like a badass idea for a movie, and it didn't do so bad critically. It got a mixed reception, which for a movie like this isn't the worst thing possible, and there's actually been attempts to make a story like this. Trey Parker, of course, did Cannibal the Musical, which is a funny black comedy that was made before he and Matt Stone created South Park. We later got Bone Tomahawk, which was received a whole lot better. But this is a film that definitely has a very interesting idea to it, and one that I might actually want to check out, because you got a lot of good talent in here, and it just sounds like a creative idea overall. I just feel like maybe it was a little bit too ahead of its time. It wasn't as big of a flop as something like Wing Commander was, but it still did well enough to garner a cult following to it, and at least people like this one compared to Wing Commander. But I'm actually kind of curious to check this one out. We are in Halloween season by the time I'm recording this. It's October 3rd, 2023, so I don't know, maybe I can look around for this, and maybe I can actually watch it, because I'm actually really curious to see what this is like. So yeah, not much more to say about that one. That is Ravenous.
Alright, here we go. Just stay with them.
With no privacy, there's no dignity.
I just want to say I really love your show.
A new comedy. What's the matter?
Ed's underwear?
From director Ron Howard.
The guy had to have sex in 6 weeks. What, like we have?
Ed TV rated PG-13. At theaters Friday.
I mean, I think that trailer kind of sums up the whole movie as a whole. I mean, you basically have Matthew McConaughey as this video store clerk who essentially agrees to have his life filmed by a camera crew for a television show, which is going to run 24 hours a day, show all the trials and tribulations and all the different things going on in the life of this guy. And that's Matthew McConaughey, of course, as Ed. You also have Jenna Elfman, Woody Harrelson, Ellen DeGeneres, Sally Kirkland, Martin Landau, Rob Reiner, Dennis Hopper, Elizabeth Hurley, Clint Howard. And you can definitely tell that this came out kind of at around a time where it was compared very much to The Truman Show, which it is very similar to The Truman Show, but at the same time, though, it was criticized because it was too similar to The Truman Show. But honestly, I actually really like this movie a lot. I think it is a very underrated film. And yes, it has similarities to The Truman Show, but really, this is an idea that has essentially evolved in the near 25 years since this has come out. I mean, we now live in a world where people have this type of thing going on. I mean, we don't have a thing where it's one person 24 hours a day, but the film was clearly trying to tell us something way before then, and way before we actually got to this point. I mean, we kind of essentially live in a world with 24-hour reality television, and it's a fun movie, man. I like Matthew McConaughey a lot in this film. I think Jenna Elfman's very good here. There's a lot of great performances from the rest of the cast as well. It doesn't have that quite ambitious elements of voyeuristic nature in television that something like The Truman Show had. I mean, The Truman Show perfected that perfectly, and it had a great performance by Jim Carrey and a great idea by the writer Andrew Niccol and director Peter Weir to make it work, but I do really like this movie a lot. I think it gets unfairly criticized because of how close it came out to the same time The Truman Show did, which is funny because actually one of the people that was in The Truman Show, Harry Shearer, plays a moderator in this movie. He was a talk show host in the Truman Show. You also see cameos by people like Michael Moore, George Plimpton, Bill Maher, Jay Leno, Ariana Huffington. RuPaul's also in here. I mean, it has a big cast overall here. Not everything about it works, but the stuff that does work, I think, does stick out very well. You do really get to like a lot of the people involved in here, and you do get invested in the storylines that are going on here. And I think they did a pretty good job of handling that. It definitely could have been a whole lot better. They could have done a little bit more to kind of distance itself from The Truman Show, but this is ambitious. It's very engaging. It is very funny at times. It definitely has the flaw of kind of being released around the same time as The Truman Show did. Truman Show is definitely the far superior film, but I think this one definitely deserves a lot more credit than it actually gets. I think it is a far more enjoyable film than I think a lot of people give it credit for. I think it is a very well-made film. I highly recommend checking it out. It's one of Ron Howard's most underrated films, in my opinion. It's definitely worth checking out as well. I should also mention that this is actually based off of a Quebec film, Louis XIX, King of the Airways, that actually came out 5 years prior to this, so even before The Truman Show, this was kind of ahead of The Truman Show. But like I said, Truman Show's a better film, but this one definitely deserves a lot more attention. Definitely check it out. You might actually find it pretty enjoyable. So that is Ed TV. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie we have here, and that is the new version of the Mod Squad.
I'm a police officer now, Dan. Officer Pete? Come on. Okay, wait.
Unpredictable. Uncontrollable.
Nice job.
I blended.
Yeah, you just blended right out of the club.
Mod Squad. Stand back! Where'd you get that from?
It's my dad's.
Rated R. Starts Friday, March 26th.
Because clearly nobody learned the lesson of the Avengers the year before, that sometimes something from a different era of television probably should have stayed there. And the Mod Squad, of course, is based off the 1960s TV series of the same name. Yeah, 1960s, just wanted to make sure. And you have Julie Barnes, Pete Cochran, and Lincoln Hayes, who are three minor delinquents who choose to become undercover cops in place of serving their jail terms. And while their superior is murdered, the superior played by Dennis Farina, the trio sets out to find the real culprits. And the three guys here are Claire Danes, Giovanni Ribisi, and Amar Epps. Josh Brolin's also in the film, as well as two of the stars from the original TV series, Peggy Limpton and Clarence William III. The director of this is Scott Silver. This was actually his last film he directed before he eventually became more well-known for his films that he wrote, 8 Mile, The Fighter, The Finest Hours, the two Joker movies. He's been nominated for 2 Academy Awards since then. And just basically kind of shows you that it's probably better for him to stay on the writing side of things than directing. Although it's been 25 years, it would be interesting to see what he'd do as a director. Interestingly enough, there were some people that were very invested and almost got this part, several parts in the movie, like Julie Barnes. They went to Sarah Michelle Gellar, they went to Melissa Joan Hart, Mila Jovovich. They all passed until Claire Danes eventually got cast, and I mean, it would have been interesting to see if one of those three could possibly take that role. What I thought was very interesting was Jonathan Dayton and Valerie Faris were offered the chance to direct the film, but they turned it down to make music videos instead. Of course, they would later translate that back to film with Little Miss Sunshine, one of the best movies of the decade of the 2000s, and it would have been interesting to see what they would have brought to the table, considering how their directing style works with their music videos. And again, kind of like with the Avengers, this is just a concept that really needs a good scriptwriter and a good filmmaker to really make this work in a modern era. The Avengers didn't work because they were just going all over the place here. This one's not quite as bad as the Avengers, but it's not that good, but it's pretty darn close. I mean, like, it tries to have this stylish look to it. It just doesn't really have it. Too much is going on. You don't really feel the connection between the three leads whatsoever. And it just feels like the typical really bad TV adaptation. Like, you've got to have people from the original show come in here as in these little cameos. It'd be nice if they actually had something to actually do here, but not so much here. This was also a major bomb for MGM. $50 million the budget was. It only brought back $15 million. Thrashed by critics, 3% on Rotten Tomatoes, which actually I think that's a little bit more than the Avengers did the year before. But like I said, that's not really saying a whole lot. Like, saying you got 3% more than the Avengers, that's not something you really should be boasting about. But luckily, everybody here kind of has moved on to much bigger and better things. And this is just one of those things that's just kind of like a possible opportunity wasted on this. Like, I mean, like I said, you really needed to get a good screenwriter and a good director to really bring this into a new generation. And this really was not it. So that is the Mod Squad. So let's go ahead and move on to the last movie, and probably the one we'll have the most conversations about, because this one has a very interesting production history. That is Disney's Doug's first movie.
This spring, prepare yourself for the biggest adventure of Doug's life. It's Doug's first movie.
Skeeter, we're gonna be famous!
For as long as Doug and his pals can remember, the legend has been told of a monster living in Lucky Duck Lake.
There's something bad behind me, isn't there?
But when Doug's wildest dreams
There is a monster which threatens our very way of life. Bless you.
become reality,
He's so nice. He's not scary at all.
Fluffington will never be the same.
Matt, no drinking out of the toilet. I am honored to welcome this new exchange student to our school. What did she say? Thanks. Run, Herman!
Can Doug face his biggest adventure ever?
What is it? Looks like clean underwear, sir.
Will Doug finally get to tell Patty Mayonnaise how he really feels?
Would you? Sure.
Can Doug save the dance from the evil guys who are out to destroy the legendary monster of Lucky Duck Lake that's ruining Doug's chances with Patty?
We gotta stop him.
All your questions will be answered in Doug's first movie.
Oh, man!
I think someone needs to calm that trailer guy down, because this really is not all that important where you have to overhype it like this, because let's talk about the production history behind this film. I mean, I recently did a video on this channel talking about how back in 1993, 20th Century Fox was going to do a Doug, Rugrats, and Ren and Stimpy film, and if they had done that, we'd probably be looking at these three coming into the Disney fold as Disney eventually bought Fox. But of course, Doug was eventually bought in by Disney when Jumbo Pictures was bought by them, and of course, Paramount had the Rugrats and Ren and Stimpy, and all them. Rugrats has been the only one that's made it to the big screen. But they decided to provide the project for Doug at Disney, and it was originally planned to be a direct-to-video release, literally titled The First Doug Movie Ever. And I know this because it was on the video cassette release of The Lion King 2 Simba's Pride, which was released on October 27th, 1998.
It's never been seen before. But now, it's heading your way.
There's something bad behind me, isn't there?
Disney presents the first Doug movie ever.
Wow!
An all-new full-length movie coming only to video.
It's going to be big, 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 big.
Join Doug Funny, Patty Mayonnaise, Roger Klotz, and Skeeter Valentine, as all your favorite characters make their movie debut. Now you can finally discover the shocking truth about what lives in Lucky Duck Lake.
Our people have located monster tracks coming toward town.
And find out if Patty will finally fall for Doug.
Can we meet, later?
All the answers are revealed. Only in this all-new movie event.
Freeze! What the?
Disney presents the first Duck movie ever. Premiering only on video, March 1999.
So what do you think happened when the Rugrats movie opened on November 20th, just 3 weeks later, and went on to become one of the first non-Disney animated film to gross $100 million? What do you think happened then? That direct-to-video movie all of a sudden became a theatrical release, which honestly is one of the major problems with the film right away. I mean, this was a movie that was originally supposed to go direct-to-video. It literally had a trailer on the video release of The Lion King 2 in October of 98, late in October 98, and then just 3 weeks later, Rugrats movie's a big hit. Disney realizes, oh shit, we gotta put this on the big screen, even though this clearly does not look like anything for the big screen. And, I mean, like I said before, a lot of the questions in the trailer for this are never answered in the movie, and if they are, you already know the answers, because most people my age at the time would have already figured out what the answers are going to be. Third, they do not do anything different in the movie to make it look like it was meant to be on the big screen. Not a thing. This literally looks like a direct-to-video movie blown up for the big screen. It's the definitive definition of a cash grab, because the Rugrats movie came out 3 weeks later, was a massive hit. Disney said, we got to put this in theaters, even though this thing looks nothing like a theatrical release. And that's how that happened. But also, the plot kind of goes against everything the show was about. I mean, that's really one of the reasons why I never liked Disney's Doug. I mean, when Nickelodeon did the original Doug, it was a great show. It was a great coming-of-age show. It didn't have to go for, like, these incredible, fantastical elements. And even when they did, it was in the mind of Doug as he was having these visions in his head, these daydreams. But here, you have a storyline where Doug and Skeeter have to protect the Lucky Duck Lake monster, which is a real creature in this world. So now the show that was meant to be more realistic and set in stone has now entered absurdity, where you throw in this monster that would never happen in real life. The stuff that happens in this movie would make the stuff that happens in The Simpsons look realistic by comparison. That's how insane this really is. Like, and not only that, every single character in this movie is so stupid. It's like every character in this movie was that their whole thing was that they were supposed to be taken seriously in the original show, have now just been reduced to just simple cardboard cutouts of their former selves, because some of the decisions they make in this are so stupid and so unrealistic, and they just have no personality to it. I'm sorry, Billy West had personality as Doug and Roger, and the people that play him now that play these two now, Tom McHugh and Chris Phillips, they just don't have it, man. Just so much of this movie is just so all over the place. And again, it just kind of reminds me of why I never liked Disney's Doug, because they watered down Doug so badly. Like, in the beginning, it gives you a sense of, okay, we're seeing these old characters back again. Let's see where they go from there. And then they just keep adding these newer elements. It gets Disney-fied. There's not really a whole lot that is, they don't really have that same feel that the Nickelodeon show did. And the fact that most of those episodes now are nearly all the episodes on the Disney's Doug are half-hour long. Like, if you have 11-minute storylines, 22 minutes plus 8 minutes of commercials, like, that makes more sense. And every once in a while they'd have a double-length episode. It'd be once in a while, and it'd be something interesting to watch. But here, it's every episode that's a half-hour long. The same is, it's like they kind of dumbed it down when they went over to Disney, and it just really didn't work as a show, and yet it ran for a good couple of years on there, and quite frankly, I can never understand why. Everybody I talked to who grew up with the original Doug on Nickelodeon and saw the one on Disney really could not understand why that lasted as long as it did. I mean, this movie, just like, kind of like what Nickelodeon would do later on down the road with some of their movies, like Hey Arnold the Movie and Rugrats Go Wild. This feels like a cash grab, but in this case, not a particularly good cash grab. It's a lame cash grab that just doesn't work. Like, I mean, if it had just stuck with the direct-to-video movie idea that they had there, it probably would have worked better. You could take it for what it is, but you're putting in the theaters, you're asking people to pay money to go see this on a big screen. You're tricking people into thinking they're going to see something that was clearly meant for the big screen, when it just really wasn't. And to me, that's just where I draw the line with Doug. I mean, this really was kind of the culmination of everything that went wrong with Doug, because, like I said, Doug really was a show when it was on Nickelodeon. It clearly had a simple premise. What made Doug stand out and become as beloved as it did was the simple plot. One thing, the series was clever enough to keep all the stories relatable and topical to many people. I mean, some of the topics the show was able to cover are still relatable, even in such a technologically advanced time that we live in. You also had a great voice cast, and then when they made it over to Doug on Disney, it seems like an inferior product compared to what it was in the original, because it was just sanitized BS. It was important to note that we've talked about it before. Like, this was still when Disney was under this idea that every live-action movie made at the time, as well as their TV shows, had to appeal to the cool kids, like how Disney saw cool kids. You know, stuff like Quack Pack, Mr. Magoo, Meet the Deedles, I'll Be Home for Christmas. Just these terrible movies and TV shows where Disney forgot what it was before and just made whatever crap they could get to make sure that they were able to appeal to the cool kids, and that's it. And, like I said, it just didn't work as a whole. The stories got way too convoluted and all over the place. A lot of the stories went on for way too long. I mean, like I said, those 11 episodes on Nickelodeon seemed like they should be. They were very contained. They were very much contained on their own merits as a whole. But with this, like what Disney did to it, they Disneyfied it to a point where it got so tedious and boring, and you couldn't stop caring about these characters whatsoever. And luckily, Disney has gotten out of this, hey, what are the kids of today up to phase, and became the studio that we know them as today. A couple of their movies recently, not so much, but certainly is a lot better than where they were at 20 years ago. I mean, this is just, bottom line, Doug's first movie, just avoid it like the plague. It's a really bad movie. I know that if you really want to see Doug for what it was, just go watch the Nickelodeon show again. Would it have been great to see a Nickelodeon movie based off of Doug? Absolutely it would have. But we have this, and yeah, it wasn't worth it. So, yeah, avoid it like the plague. That's Doug's first movie for you.